Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone. And today I'm very excited to learn, because I know I'm going to learn a lot from Scott Olsen, Emeritus Professor of Philosophy and Religion from College of Central Florida. He was there for 32 years, and he's a lifelong student of ancient wisdom, which of course is part of my passion. He's a national speaker for the Theosophical Society in the US and the UK, and has many published papers on all of this. And he's a regular presenter for the New York Open Center's Esoteric Quests, which hopefully we'll get to hear a little bit about it. You'll find, and I'm so excited to learn about this. I hope I understand it all. But you're a teacher, so you're used to students' stupid questions. So that's the good news. So, Scott, how did you get involved in this? How did you start your journey to wanting to know all of this? Because there must have been something that happened in your childhood or something.
Yeah, well, it's going to sound bizarre, and but it began when I was 2 days old, and my parents were bringing me home from the hospital, and I found myself out of my body. I was hovering above my father's church, watching the whole scene unfold as they brought me from a black vehicle. I had color sense at the same time. I mean, I know it sounds amazing. This was not a near-death experience. I was simply out of body, but in full consciousness. And I recall actually able to see in multiple directions, but also focus in. And I remember saying to myself, oh no, here we go again. And as they got to the threshold of the door, became very interesting, because my entire life has been a series of crossing thresholds and understanding these thresholds. As they got to the threshold of the door, I sank and I blacked out. And then my early memories of it as a child, looking up at my mother's face. And then there were a series of events that occurred in my youth that triggered remembrance. It's like Plato says, learning is remembrance, anamnesis, non-amnesia. And birth is a forgetting, but it's that remembrance, if we can pull it back in. And so I had that, what should I say, the value of having had a kind of a prevision and knowing kind of what's in the cards for me, the future. But that was then triggered again by, if I should just go on with this, several experiences. When I was 4 years old, I remember in the backyard, it must have been like the summer solstice. The sun was beating down. My father's nearby. I lay down on my stomach on the rock, and I have a transformative experience, exhilaration, kundalini, whatever it was. It was like a reawakening. And again, some of these things were triggering further and further memories. And then when I was 5, I was accidentally run over by my father. And it was all my fault. I was trying to sneak into the back seat of the car before they took off. They were leaving town, and they had my favorite babysitter, but I did not want to be home. And so I snuck out into the garage. And then my father, however, came out quickly. I could hear the screen door slam, and so I jumped in front of the car so he couldn't see me. But then as he's backing up, it became clear that he's going to see me. So I grabbed a hold of the bumper, and it was a low.
Mm-hmm. Well, we hope the internet will behave itself so that we can get back to this. real quick, what I'll do is I'll share one of his sites real quick while we're waiting for. So this is one of Scott's sites. He has several. And this one is about mostly about the golden meme. So a golden ratio numbering system. And as you can see in the background when he's speaking, he's written a book about it. This is quite amazing. Golden balance, spirit, sound, and the mathematical beauty of the cosmos. That's what he'll be on a panel coming up for that. And this site is called goldensection.expert. So you can look at it here. You can get his publications. These are some of his publications: Golden Section, Mysteries of the Amazon, Grand Unification of the Sciences, Rediscovering the Pythagorean Plato's Golden Meme Numbering System, which I'd love to get to talk to him about. I hope this all works, that we get. There we go. I went to your site, the Sacred Geometry site, to show them that while we were waiting.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine. So let me stop sharing that. And okay, so did you have a near-death experience, or you got run over?
So getting run over, no, and I didn't get killed or have an actual near-death experience, but these were events that helped kind of, what should I say, trigger memories. And I'll give you another example, memories of the original experience 2 days old when I was out of the body, and more detailed of what's going to happen in the future. And then another one was when I had a tonsillectomy, and my little sister went in first. Well, first thing was my brother comes up to me, shakes my hand, and says, "It's nice knowing you." This was about 6 years old. And so I was hyper alert to top it off. And then they wheeled my sister in first, and then wheel me by her to get my tonsillectomy, and she's laying there. She looks like she's dead with the blood all over the pillow. And so I was really hyper tense. And they give me ether, and I'm holding my mother's hand, and I remember her telling me that I said to her, "I'm feeling tired," but my voice trailed off, "I'm feeling tired." But what was interesting was the ether was very much like the blacking out of crossing the threshold. That anesthesia was the same type of blacking out and then into another stage, moving through. So those early experiences helped kind of re-trigger what was happening. And I knew all along it involved beauty, wisdom, numbers. Later on, as I'm kind of remembering and going along my path, it's clear that it's Pythagorean, it's Plato. Ultimately, I realize it's all golden section, the mathematics of nature. And these get triggered along the way with other events. But that kind of gives you at least the start of this whole thing. Later on, when I'm a university student, I take a course with Dan Pedo, geometer, who also is an artist, and he got me into the honors program at the University of Minnesota. And he did a course on art and number and geometry. And his specialty was the golden section, which I'd already encountered. But then I became more and more involved with it and realized this is like a key to nature. And so I kind of specialized in that and did a Summa thesis on Platonic aesthetics, graduated from the University of Minnesota, flew over to England and to study with the esotericist Dr. Douglas Baker, great esotericist, steeped in the works of Madame Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, Rudolf Steiner, Gurdjieff. And at the same time, I was doing my master's degree at the University of London at Birkbeck College. And because I was interested in the paranormal, so the psi phenomena paranormal started right from the beginning. And then when I was at the University of Minnesota, I started my own kind of club, ESP club, extrasensory perception or esoteric principles club. And did research on parapsychology there. And then at Birkbeck, the head of the department was John Hasted, and he was working with children who had developed the ability to bend metals, not by rubbing them, but from a distance. Casing, so they could not touch them. And some of these abilities back at the University of Minnesota, because I became a bodybuilder and I was using self-hypnosis, brainwave synchronizer, crystal ball, Moire pattern, had spontaneous out-of-body experiences. Well, so when I get to Birkbeck, Hasted says, okay, what we want you to do is come up with hypotheses to help explain this paranormal phenomena that we're experiencing in the lab with Uri Geller and other psychics. And he said, you must study with David Bohm. So here was my ticket into the physics with David Bohm, the great, great, great physicist, a great thinker who worked with Krishnamurti and others. I mean, just brilliant individual. And I was fortunate that we would meet in his office. I, with a philosophy student studying Plato and Aristotle, with two physics students. And so we had private attention with the great David Bohm. So all of this was feeding into my background and into my knowledge. And ultimately, when I came to the University of Florida, after I'd finished my master's degree in there in London, where Bohm read my paper on the collapse of continuous space-time, I kind of figured out how precognition can work. So I was going to do a dissertation at the University of Florida on precognition and space-time. And I did all the research, and in some ways I really wish I had kind of finished it up. I did all the preparation without actually writing the dissertation. I had all the research done, but there really weren't positions in philosophy. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go to law school, get my degree, get something practical so that I can get in the job market. So I did that degree fairly quickly. And then I realized, now, wait a minute, Scott, you have all this research you've done on Plato and what's called abduction, which I'll explain in a moment, and the kind of secrets of the golden section. And I had all of this material. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do that dissertation. I pumped that out in a year. So my doctorate was the Pythagorean Plato and the golden section, a study in abductive inference. Now that abductive, that's not abducting like an alien. That's a kind of inference or logic where you come up with new hypotheses to explain anomalies and things that don't fit in. And you're oftentimes using the right non-dominant hemisphere, which is like a satellite dish. If you ask the right question, the universe will respond back because the whole thing is interconnected and interdependent. So anyway, I cranked out that dissertation. Now they have a rule at the University of Florida. You can't qualify in one area and do your dissertation in another, even though it was all philosophy. So that was kind of set me on my path with certainly with the golden section. And there's so much more, but I should probably stop for a moment and let you get back in here, Kathy.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, so your experience, your quest basically to uncover and dive deep into the mystery of this of this environment connected you to nature as your nature and math as your guide, right? Could you explain a little bit about that? Because I want to make sure I know that I know a little bit about what you're talking about. And I've certainly had out of body experiences and and play with consciousness daily. But but what I'm curious about is the truth that you uncovered that might help us, because you can see we're in this time of chaos. It's a disruption as we evolve to a new, better human. Hopefully, that's what Barbara Marx Hubbard, several futurists have been talking. Barbara Marx Hubbard called us Homo Universalis, and many more. And nature is the key to this evolutionary process, and I find some comfort in that. And I'm hoping that what you're going to explain may help that as well.
So what happened was I became very early on kind of imbued with the beauty, particularly of horses. I was given at a very young age, and it may have been when I was run over accidentally, and some one of the relatives gave me a little book, glossy, beautiful colors of horses, just stunning. And I just, I could not believe the magnificence of these animals. And I just was totally enamored with it. But then it was also nature itself, and recognizing the beauty in nature. My father, as I mentioned, was a minister, but he also had as a hobby a tree farm, which we grew up with, and we planted by hand over 100,000 evergreen trees, Christmas trees, etc. But I became imbued with all of how nature works. And the mathematics of nature became extremely interesting to me. And then when I was introduced to Dan Peto at the University of Minnesota, that's when the real crux came in. But this was going on all along. I'd had these experiences. I knew that nature and the beauty of nature was so important. My brother, I had an older brother, Ted, who was a bodybuilder, got me into that. So I switched kind of from the horses to human bodies in terms of the aesthetics. And he and I became the two top bodybuilders in Minnesota. And I went on to do all kinds of national stuff. But it was the aesthetics, not the mass and gawky extremes, but rather the aesthetics of the human body, studying these proportions amongst the ancient Greeks and some of the beautiful sculptures and things that they did. So that kind of carried me through with the aesthetics, but then the wisdom part of it, while I was training for the bodybuilding at the University of Minnesota, I had learned these techniques of using the brainwave synchronizer and self-hypnosis, extreme dharana, one-pointed concentration, and pratyahara, the limbs of yoga, going inwards. And as a result, I was able to program myself to lift heavier and heavier weights, but I also was able to kind of open up the brow, the ajna center. And one day when I wasn't trying to have out-of-body experiences, wasn't trying anything, I was exhausted. Came up to I was on the seventh floor of a 14-story dormitory. And as I laid down on the bed, I realized and covered my eyes with a towel. And I had learned how to put my body pretty much to sleep, like a wet dish rag, literally dropping right through the bed, so that I could do the programming with the audio tapes normally. But this time, no audio tapes, nothing. I realized that with my eyes closed and covered, I could see the stucco in the ceiling. And I could see all these black light posters lining the walls that I had. And I realized I could see backwards and forwards, very much like my perinatal experience at 2 days old, where it was a multiple seeing in all directions, kind of a little bit different. But then I lift on up out, and I realize, okay, this is real stuff now. Float towards the wall. I'm going right towards that Moire pattern, which is looks like a magnetic field with a dot in the center that I used to, concentrate on and etc. And as I'm going right towards that dot, I realize, well, wait a minute, this is real now. Um, are you going to go through that wall and they're going to find you 7 stories down, smattered on the cement? Wait a minute. You get through that wall. Can you get back through? Do you know? Wait a minute. Who's doing this to me? Um, something going to take over my body. So here was a threshold, the wall that I blocked. Now, that was not a good idea to block something like that. It's like being hypnotized and using a negative command or suggestion. Anyway, I had a big easel that I would draw on that it was like I was caught on my shoulder blade on the easel, and then I snapped right back into the body very rapidly. But what happened as a result of that is that I could have out-of-body experiences essentially at will. I knew the technique to do it, and I could put myself in that rest state and lift on up out. But because I had that initial block with the wall, I had a mental block of going through the walls. Eventually I was able to do it, but it was a real challenge. Eventually I could go right up through the ceiling, up through the other floors of the dormitory.
I'm going to go ahead and show another site that Scott has that is quite amazing. And here we go. It's called Mysteries of the Amazon, and it is. I'll make sure it's in the description so you can look at it. It's quite amazing. Isn't that amazing? And that's what you're talking about, Scott, seeing all of that. Right? So this is artwork from his Mysteries of the Amazon, and he's got artists and exhibitions. There's a gallery here. Look at these beautiful, insightful, and activating art. Wow.
So Kathy, am I still with you?
Yeah, now you are. Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, you blipped out a little bit, so I went to your other site to show. If that's okay. It's absolutely magnificent, this artwork.
So what I've collected from the Amazon were the paintings of Pablo Amaringo, this great ayahuasquero that I befriended, and then his students. So these would be paintings by his students that I've collected. I have a huge collection. So I'm a collector looking for a gallery, and I would actually donate the paintings that I have. I have a fortune in paintings, and some of the Pablo Amaringos are just priceless. But if I can find someone who would have a studio and would preserve it for humanity, that's what I'm after. So that's, yeah, I know that's, and the jaguars are typically in there because they're the top of the food chain, Kathy.
Right.
And so they have the consciousness of all of the animal, all of nature. That's why it's not unusual. And it happened to me all the time. I would become one with the jaguar and the jaguar would become me. But I learned that really the danger on the planet is not the animals. And I learned that when I went to Galapagos Islands as well. They're in a state of harmony, of symbiosis, of peacefulness. It's human beings, the nastiness of human beings. And we don't have to be this way because we are, as you know, and I follow your work, Kathy, as well. The interdependence of everything and everyone is where it's at.
Right.
And what comes through is the love that we need to have in its selflessness, not selfishness, not ego, and not nastiness towards others and belligerence. Anyway, that's what needs to be cultivated. But then I need to tell you what happened in 2005.
I'll stop sharing, but I'm going to go back to that site and really look at it because I'm fortunate enough that I can go to the mountains here in Colorado and experience multi-dimensional beings without any need for drugs or any altering. I can just go to those spaces. And so I've got chills right now after looking at that. It was amazing.
Let me just mention that I'm just going to pull this up.
Okay.
I've privately published this with 3 physicists, one of which is Muhammad al-Nashi, who was twice nominated for the Nobel Prize in Physics.
Wow.
And so I, like when I lecture, I bring these along. There is a online copy in Amazon, just making people aware of that. And in there, I describe the use of entheogens.
Hmm. Darn. Well, let's see. So what I'm excited to learn about is how we can learn more about the golden section and how that can help us, because it's part of our natural experience. And the more that we can get back to our origin and the balance of that, the better. What I'm fascinated with is that that his work, Scott has worked with some of the most amazing people. David Bohm, Dr. Douglas Baker, Edgar Mitchell, he's worked with, Huston Smith, I don't know him, but these are all esoteric or scientists that bridge from this reality to the unknown. His book, actually, the golden section that he has in the background, when he comes back on, you'll see. It is a international best-selling book. So there's so much to learn from him. I hope the internet will cooperate for us. And I may have to do this again and use Zoom or something, since this third-party system may not work as well. He also co-authored a book called A Grand Unification of the Sciences, Arts, and Consciousness. And hopefully it's a way to unify us to a more united understanding of reality, which is what I think we're doing right now. Is this period we're in, since the lockdown, has been to have us go inward and discover the connection that we have really with the earth and our place in it, and then create a more harmonious experience here. That's how I think we get to our new human. Plus, we have the opportunity to activate more of our DNA through connecting to the earth as the earth is evolving. So here we go. We got Scott back. There we go.
So sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Well, we might do this again on Zoom and see if that connection might be better. But right now, let's keep going through this.
Okay.
And
having problems. Come here.
I was explaining to people about your amazing experience being mentored by Dr. Douglas Baker and David Bohm, and is it Huston
Well,
Smith?
Houston Smith. Houston
Okay.
Smith became a very good friend. He's kind of like the Joseph Campbell, but I'm sure you know of him. He wrote, originally it was called Religions of Man. Of course, then they
Oh,
made it more gender neutral, and but he's the one who introduced comparative religion really to the United States and into the world. Like I said, he's really the Joseph Campbell of comparative religion.
wow. And you also were mentored by Edgar Mitchell. Do you want to? So hopefully we'll be able to find out about that. Oh, I'm so sorry, Scott. Mm. Okay. Well, let's see. I think what we'll do, because it's just apparently a bad time to be on his internet. But what I think we'll do is if he can get right back on, we'll continue. Otherwise, we'll stop this here and then re-record this. You never know what's going to happen with technology, but this is a brilliant opportunity for all of us to not have to get 3 degrees and read 100 books to learn from Scott. His life path is really remarkable. So I'm hoping that you'll benefit as much as possible from learning about his work, and that it will support you in your changes and creativity and joyfulness of living here at this changing time. So I think I'll stop this stream right now, and then we'll re-record. But thank you all. Thank you, and thank you.